their shattered glass and holes in their walls.
And it could be any night of the week where the sound of gunshots are followed by an ambulance siren signaling another person has gone down, struck by bullets. Last week, a man had left a Castleberry Hill nightclub and walked toward his vehicle. He told police several men, all clad in black, got out of their car and fired in his direction. Patrick Collins is the vice president of the Castleberry Hill Neighborhood Association.
The businesses are prospering, but the residents are suffering. Now folks are afraid to go outside to walk their dogs and or just go for a healthy walk sometimes at night, because the crime has just increased to the point where it's actually dangerous to do so.
His organization is set to meet again with police later this month. Beyond that, can something be done from Atlanta City Hall?
I actually live right across the street from Castleberry Hill, so I hear the gunshots and gunfire also.
Councilman Michael Bond advocates a greater presence of police dedicated to private off-duty jobs around the gathering spots.
Some of these individuals don't respect the security guards in the same way that they would respect the Atlanta police officer. We may even look at the distance requirements for alcoholic beverage establishments. It's about 1,500 feet as it exists today for residential distance.
That gunshot victim hit 3 times, all below the stomach. He did survive. From Southwest Atlanta.
The gratitude of this department for the excellent work of Grady Hospital today and in responding to the injuries our officers sustained, and just acknowledging the graces that Almighty God had over our department today with our officers. I wanted to start with that. This afternoon at approximately 1:15, the Atlanta Police Department was attempting to apprehend an armed robbery and aggravated assault perpetrator, which we believe was on Old Hateville Road. That person was wanted for a robbery and an aggravated assault with a firearm that occurred in October of last year. This perpetrator was a known documented gang member within the city. The officers were able to identify the individual. Officer moved in to take him into custody, at which time a physical fight ensued between the officer and the perpetrator. That perpetrator was able to retrieve a firearm that we believe he was carrying at the time, fired at the officer, striking him multiple times. Then the perpetrator fled into the apartment complex. The Atlanta Police Department immediately started operating in 2 modes: save the life of the officer, get him here to Grady Hospital, and also to apprehend the individual that was now an imminent threat to that particular neighborhood. Those 2 things were executed flawlessly. The officer was brought here to Grady Hospital, and our officers in very short order was able to locate the perpetrator, take him into custody, no further injuries to officers or that community that he had tried to attempt to find shelter into. At this time, the officer is here at the hospital in stable condition. He is seriously injured. He is able to communicate with his co-workers. He's able to communicate with his family and members of the command staff that you see around me. He will have a long road of recovery before him. But this department will not be deterred. What happened today is the challenge that we are against here in Atlanta and in cities across this country, where individuals are heavily armed, heavily proliferation of guns, and are loose in our communities, causing harm to police officers, who are being assaulted at record levels across the country, and placing communities in imminent harm. But this department will not be deterred. We're going to continue to stand in the gap. We will continue to apprehend these individuals and bring them before courts so that our cases can be properly adjudicated. And I want to commend the men and women of this department today that did not shirk from their duties, that continue to pursue this felon and take him into custody so he cannot harm anyone else. We also want to thank the Fulton County Sheriff's Department as well as the FBI who have extended their help today. We also want to thank Mayor Dickens, who did respond to the hospital and was able to spend some brief time with the officer while he was being cared for by the Grady physicians here. And we don't have many questions that we can answer because this is still in its preliminary phases, but anything else
Give him the keys to her car.
And when I turned around to the right, he was right there. And he just looked at me and said, "Give me the key." And I was like, "What?" And he opened his jacket, and there was a silver revolver with a black handle, and he said it again, "Give me the key."
She says her car is a 2014 Mercedes-Benz C250. It has a Florida license plate of Y62RKQ. It's dark gray with a white interior. The last time she saw it, the gunman was driving away with it down Covington Highway.
The statue would be here inside the Capitol or somewhere on Capitol grounds. While Republicans say Justice Clarence Thomas has had a distinguished career, Democrats dispute that.
And it's not that we have a problem that he's a conservative or Republican. We think he's a hypocrite and a traitor.
Fiery arguments on the floor of the state Senate Monday as lawmakers debate a bill that would honor justice.
I just saw a video of then Senator Joe Biden saying the N-word. Well, I took my other device and shot a video of it. And I'm going to put it on my Instagram. Oh, boy. And they thought he was not prejudiced. He keeps proving himself to be an idiot.
Already have a nigger mayor, we don't need any more nigger big shots. Already have a nigger mayor, we don't need any more nigger big shots. Already have a nigger mayor, we don't need any more nigger big shots. Already have a nigger mayor, we don't need any more nigger big shots. Already have a nigger.
I just saw a video of then Senator Joe Biden saying the N-word. Well, I took my other device and shot a video of it. And I'm going to put it on my Instagram. Oh, boy. And they thought he was not prejudiced. He keeps proving himself to be an idiot.
And then went on to go to Yale Law School. That's the story of this guy. It's a Georgia story, and that story should be told now, not after he's gone.
On the passage of the bill, the yeas are...
Senators approved the bill along party lines.
The Constitution.
Rather juvenile, but the reality is it poses a threat to the United States. They have now said going forward they're going to work together on Taiwan. They're going to work together on Ukraine. Those are the two biggest issues to those countries, but they're also going to partner on this whole host of other issues, from work in, defense in space to artificial intelligence to internet security. Jake Sullivan, the National Security Advisor, tried to push back on you, Martha. He said, well, nowhere in this 5,000-page document does it call this partnership an alliance. Again, the reality is that this means whatever Russia and China wants it to mean on any given day. They might not be calling it an alliance right now, but it's an alliance.
Yeah, Juan. Being taken seriously globally, Martha. And, here in the United States, you have had discussions earlier today about the sanctions efforts against Russia, but, we've also seen sanctions efforts now in Congress against China. There's talk about the diplomatic boycott, but the sanctions effort is really the power here. And just in terms of China, just on Friday, the House passed a substantial sanctions bill. In June, the Senate passed it on a bipartisan basis. The House bill got caught up in some politics, only one Republican vote there. But the overall power of it as it goes into conference is to impose serious sanctions on China, and also to boost America's economic independence from China, which I think is absolutely critical to make us more innovative, strengthen American manufacturing, go in terms of American ability to do things on the energy front, like scrub air, produce clean energy, so that we are less dependent on China. This is all, it seems to me, critical. I think the partisanship is regrettable. I think it's shameful that there was only one GOP vote in the House over issues like, clean oceans and coral. I think we need at this point to stand strong and be very clear. We're not going to play around with China or Russia.
Josh, is Congress going to have an impact on this dynamic?
Well, it could. Look, I think the Biden administration has all of the tools that are necessary to try to unite things and the lootings and the riots all across this country for the last 2 years. I think they have an extreme problem. I think this administration understands that, but they still can't get to a point where they're talking about it in a way that resonates with the American people.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more with our
panel of gas to keep Europeans warm through the rest of the winter. That work is well underway, and President Biden and Chancellor Scholz will discuss it further tomorrow when the chancellor is here in Washington.
Last week I had Senator Rob Portman, Republican senator from Ohio, on, who I know has been in coordination in some ways on Ukraine policy with the administration. And he said to me, it's his understanding in private that Germany has given the United States assurance that if Putin invades Ukraine, the pipeline is done, that they are willing to suspend the pipeline. But they won't say that publicly. Will the German chancellor say that publicly with the president tomorrow?
I'll let the German chancellor speak for himself, but the Biden administration, at President Biden's direction, has been absolutely simply clear on this. If Russia invades Ukraine, one way or another, Nord Stream 2 will not move forward. And Russia understands that. We are coordinated with our allies in Europe on that.
What's the definition of invasion?
That will be the reality if Russia chooses to.
For a 3-year-old to communicate what they really are feeling, and if there's a problem, can they actually do that? I don't think they can. That's part of the reason why we want to wait.
Cam, how about you? How have you fared, and how have your children fared during this pandemic?
So my son's 13, so, he started at a new school right when it started. I still think he's, sort of playing catch up and trying to get back to some level of normalcy.
Did the vaccine make a tremendous difference in his life or in your psychology?
Absolutely, because you always want to do anything you possibly can to protect your child. And unfortunately, I lost my best friend who opted to not get vaccinated prior to my son being able to get vaccinated. So as soon as it was an option for him to be able to get the vaccine, he was 12 when he got it, there wasn't any hesitation on my part.
Alejandro, your children are a little bit older. What was your conversation about the need to get vaccinated or not?
My kids are really prudent, verging on the hypochondriac. So they got vaccinated as soon as they were eligible. I didn't have to push them at all. If anything, they pushed me.
And, how did that make you feel as a parent?
It made me feel safer. We were not, given their ages, I wasn't worried about them dying of COVID, but I was worried about them having the flu from hell and then having any long-term consequences of that flu from hell.
Do all of you and do all of your children wear masks? Raise your hand. And they all wear masks when they go to school. Do any of you hope that they get to take off that mask soon, or is it just normal now?
My middle child is going to college, and at colleges, they really have a nasty mental health crisis. It's not made up, and the COVID restrictions have a lot to do with that. It's masking, the social distancing, the asking for the having to get tested twice a week, and so on and so forth. It's really taxing, and it's really affecting their social lives. It's driving some of them pretty crazy, I guess.
Allison, I want you to jump in here because I think you've got a pretty interesting point of view. You are actually a pediatrician. Are you concerned about development with young children, given all the restrictions we're living under? Do you think that's a valid worry from parents?
I do, especially for our teenage children. As far as the little ones go, I am not quite so concerned because these little ones are so resilient. So I think it's less of a concern than the big kids. But yeah, I think it's definitely an issue. I see it in my own daughter she's in first grade, and in kindergarten, she was wearing a mask all year and it wasn't an issue. And at the beginning of this year, they didn't have them wearing masks, and she was thrilled, of course. And then with the upsurge and the new variant, they had them return to masks, and she just cried. She was devastated. So it really brought it kind of into more perspective to me that, this is hard for them. It affects them so much more than we realize sometimes.
When you hear the term children are
12,000 new cases of the virus, 128 Georgians have died, and 433 were hospitalized. The Biden administration faces pressure from governors to establish guidelines for moving into an endemic stage of COVID. Former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb says there are currently no agreed-upon metrics on when to roll back measures such as masking in schools. Governors across the country have taken different approaches to lifting mask rules, with some ending as early as next month.
We need to agree.
Russian President Vladimir Putin was seeking things he cannot get from ongoing diplomatic efforts to resolve the crisis. The commander of these troops on August 30th was the last American soldier to leave Afghanistan.
Our national contribution here in Poland shows our solidarity with all of our allies here in Europe. And obviously during this period of uncertainty, we know that we are stronger together.
Downtown. The move gives the city some additional powers around procurement and how it delivers services. Thousands of protesters descended in Ottawa again this past weekend, joining 100 who remained since the week before. South of the border, it's a bird, it's a plane, well, we don't know. A bright light shot across the sky above Cabo San Lucas in Mexico's Baja California Sur on Saturday night. People shared videos on social media of the spectacle in the sky, with some theorizing they had witnessed a meteorite or space debris. But its nature remains unclear.
After an accident, you have